Hello, I'm a fraudster, and I'm going to scare the living daylights out of more than 1 in 5 of you. Your online password is...
Adding numbers, capitals and symbols makes your password stronger.
As a Sky VIP, I get the best treatment. I get the
same great TV deals as new customers.
Whoa, that's my line. As I was saying, I
can get seats at the biggest games.
Oh, come on.
And the longer you're a VIP, the better it gets.
If you don't mind. At Sky, everyone's a VIP. Okay, fine, go for it.
Sky. Believe in better. Compatible device, My Sky app and broadband 3G, 4G required. Charges may apply. Tickets allocated in a ballot. 18 plus. See sky.com/VIP terms. Existing customers must call for new customer TV deals. Reward eligibility subject to Sky tenure.
This is a global original podcast. Hello and welcome to Full Disclosure, a podcast project conceived chiefly to allow me to spend more time with people than is ordinarily available in a radio interview. So someone, this week's guest fits squarely into that category, although obviously coronavirus lockdown and the Atlantic Ocean being what it is, we're not in the same room. Tim Roth, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, no, it's good.
We're recording this on the last day of Donald Trump's tenure as President of the United States of America. So I'm hoping you're going to be the Rosetta Stone to help us all understand how the flip this has happened.
I don't know, we call him the orange shit stick in our house. And your guy, the eaten orange. Which they seem to be working on a sort of... I suppose the thing that's interesting about tomorrow, I mean, what is it? It's about 20 hours away now.
Yeah.
Is that it does end in some form. It ends. I mean, we don't know what the repercussions of that ending are going to be, but certainly it's come to a close. It's been 4 years of actually, it's been thoroughly depressing.
Yes.
For certainly from my point of view, in that it's like a pit of your stomach. You retch whenever he made some kind of proclamation. When you saw the lackeys going along, you saw gradually people being drawn, not so gradual actually, but people being drawn into his state of mind, and you saw the country turning. It was very it's very disheartening and very saddening. It's depressing.
Did you ever think you might be the one going mad? Did you ever sort of think maybe the emperor has got clothes on after all?
No.
So many other people have started cheering.
No, we didn't. I mean, my dad always talked about this was coming to America. He always felt that America was ripe. It was a question of when that would happen. And, with Reagan, it was apartheid, we had Iraq with Bush. We've been down these roads many. Was it Vietnam before that? And so been down that road many times. We haven't come into the light. I don't think America's really come into the light as far as fascism is concerned, or potentially fascistic behaviour is concerned, in such a sort of naked way, really. But you could see evidence of that across Europe too, and now in Britain. So it seemed like the time was right. And
the planet's aligned with Trump and the showbiz side of it. And I know you've spoken in the past about if you ignore the working class for long enough, they will rise up without necessarily rising up in the right place.
Yeah. I mean, we had the Anti-Nazi League when I was a kid. We had the National Front, the British Movement. The gang. We had the breaking of the strikes, the busting of the unions. We had Thatcherism, and now you got Boris.
So
and also, how does this is on topic, but I turned on the TV one day and there's that Jacob Rees-Mogg. How does that happen?
Well, you know how.
Well,
It's
But
definitely.
you've got to get. It's the working class that will put them. That will put these people in this position of power over them. How does that? How's it consistently? I suppose the question is, how does it consistently happen?
You've got an Irish background. You've got working.
I don't know about that. I'm not sure if I do.
It's the only research.
Well, my grandfather and I think my grandmother had Irish blood, and they came over from America with the family. So I was always told that there was some, but the name was Smith.
Yeah.
So try finding that. Otherwise I'd have an Irish passport.
But
you can't.
This speaks to how political your old man was, doesn't it? Because he changed his name to Roth, as I understand it, as a sort of political statement, a statement of allegiance with Jewish people.
Yeah. Well, my mum's name was Philby. She was English, and my dad was a weird mixture of reverse immigration from the American side of things, and they brought them over and they put them to work in the factories in Liverpool. The kids, they were in the brick factories, and then I think, from what I understand, my dad went, and the kids went to their father, who was an abuser, and said, "Oi, we're going to go to the police if you don't get the fuck out of here." So they moved them down to Kent and to the hop fields down in Kent and put them to work down there. And then I think there was some schooling involved. And then the war came along, and that was a blessing. So when my dad was underage for that, I think he was 17, I got his papers in my office, he joined the Air Force. And that was better than anything he was getting at home. And then educated himself, taught himself Italian, became a journalist, and there you go.
And I mean, you say, and there you go. Journalism, that's quite a journey. My own father came from a much humbler background than I do, but at that age, you could be a teenager, start making cups of tea on a newspaper office, and then progress up the ladder. George Clooney's dad was a journalist as well, of course. Did you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Did you never fancy it?
No, I never liked you people.
Did you? No, well, I know you don't now. One of the notes I've got here says, has a reputation for hating interviewers.
No,
I know, I'm just telling you what it says.
Yeah, I'm fucking. I don't at all, actually. There's some extraordinary people out there doing incredible work. But then there's the machine, which I hear you talking about, which is, family-owned empire. And they tend to be the ones that are in charge of the propaganda unit, and it's so blatant and it's so obvious. But if you want to pay attention to it, so I do. I suppose it's not journalists I have a problem with; it's specific organisations that people work with and for. I have a problem with them, I suppose, and they have a problem with me. So it goes both ways.
Yeah. By the time you came along, your dad was secure. I mean, you always, whenever you've spoken about him, I know you don't do much personal stuff in interviews, but he'd had a terrible childhood, as you just alluded to.
He'd had a rough one.
Yeah.
And he was an alcoholic, and he had PTSD, and my mum had a terrible time. My mum was a teacher at primary school. Up the road, which we went to up through infants, and then I went to a bit of a posher place, actually, in junior school. But she was a teacher, and with a dad that was not really there. Sure. I mean, mentally and physically, and so she brought us up, and she was extraordinary for that. She brought us up. But my dad's after the war. He taught himself Italian, so then he became a translator for newspapers, and that's how that connection happened. And he was self-taught, very bright, and good with words. He used to do a thing he told me about. He showed me a couple of them, where he would write to the Guardian, to the letters page, as an angry Tory. And just to see if he could get them published. And they got published. And so then they asked him, I think on the slide, could you just keep them coming? He did a few things like that. He was that sort. He had that sort of Goons, Peter Sellers, Spike Milligan more.
Yes.
Sense of humour, I suppose. about it. But yeah, journalism was his job, and then he wasn't. I don't think it was reliable, and it wasn't a good job for an alcoholic. So he, because you're always meeting in pubs.
Yes.
And so I think he probably got fired off a lot of papers, and I actually don't know. I'm making this up as I go along, but then he ended up being a DIY.
You'll make a journalist of you yet, you see.
Yeah. He would work for, there was a family circle or living, and he would show you how to build the table. Okay. And because he was good with his hands, so he was a bit of a carpenter. So he would do that. That's kind of what he was doing at the end, and then the odd article, and it was over.
So what were you? I mean, where did the performance gene first appear then? If because you were, I mean, the COD psychology would say that you were vying for your dad's attention or something like that. But that doesn't
I didn't live with my dad. My dad lived up the road.
Right.
No, my dad lived up the road. I think. I mean, we talked about this a lot when we were doing The War Zone, and I think it seemed, which is a film I did about abuse.
Of course. Yes.
I think you're a performer. I think a lot of people who are being abused their director is their abuser, and their performance of normal life is their acting. And so, if that makes any kind of sense, and so I think it was there. I was bullied at school. I had the shit kicked out of me on a regular basis. The teachers were bullies too, the bad ones. You get beaten a lot. And so you spent a lot of time bunking off. So we would take, this is a long way around, but it's kind of, so I was already kind of performing my life at that point. And then it was a boys' school. And so, I was crap at, I was never really there. I would leg it. Me and my mates would go up to the West End, take a change of clothes, sign in the morning, do that, hands, I'm in, and fuck off. And the teachers weren't bothered because it was one less to worry about.
Yeah.
So we would go up, and in the end, because it was dodgy in the West End at that time, we ended up going to the ICA, and we're taken in by, there was 3 people that ran the art exhibits and ran the front desk and all that. It was a bit of a shit show. It was, and all the better for it, I think, the ICA at that time. It was great. I remember this big black dude from America who was a transvestite, and he got us under his arm. They gave us a corner. We could draw. We could talk. We were safe.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about it. Me and a mate were obsessed with Beckett, we talked about earlier. When we were doing, by the time sixth form happened, all of the, sorry, I'm rambling about this, but all the kids, there was an amalgamation of all schools in the area. The boys' schools became boys and girls' schools. I finally went back to school when I was 16, and it was girls, it was women. And suddenly the conversations were of a much higher kind of intellectual level.
Yeah.
And you weren't getting the shit kicked out of you all the time. And so I started to study, and one of the things I became obsessed with was Beckett. We were doing Godot at the time. And me and my mate became these weird characters that we'd taken from the play, and we annoyed the shit out of the school. And we went into an audition for a school play as a joke. We thought we were being smart Alex. And the teacher, this extraordinary woman, Jill Walker, went, you got it. I was like, what the fuck did you just say? And the joke backfired, and I became an actor that day.
What was the play?
So it was called Dracula Spectacular. It was a musical, and it was wonderful. But I had to perform in front of all the school bullies. I was shitting myself.
How did it go?
But it was the most extraordinary experience, and she pushed me. Maybe take auditions, go to community theatres, take classes, do all that stuff. I asked her one time what she saw in me, and she said, danger, you were in danger.
Really?
You were troubled, yeah. Yeah, and that's what she saw. Very clever woman.
You're more than a small business, so MailChimp made this more than an ad. It's also an operetta.
MailChimp has a smart marketing platform with marketing automations, smart recommendations, and creative tools that all work together to help you sell more stuff.
MailChimp, built for growing
businesses.
what you said about performing, subconsciously putting on a performance, mask the pain you were feeling as a victim.
Yeah.
As a victim of bullying.
I think, I mean, it was pre-phones.
Yeah.
We didn't even have a telly until later on. We had a phone, but when we put a phone in the house, it ended up in a drawer because the landlord was always calling the rent. Just went in a drawer. The idea that you would walk into a police station, that's my dog, that you could walk into a police station and say, "Oi, this guy's fucking with me," never crosses your mind. You are trained not to have those thoughts. It's only later when you hang on a sec. I'll be right back.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
This is an intermission in a special edition of Full Disclosure where I am talking to Tim Roth.
Life goes on.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Hi. Sorry, the dog's yelling.
This guerrilla interviewing going on here.
I know, right? So the idea that you could do that, now you could hit an app, now you could find someone, now you could, if you had the guts to do it, you could probably alert somebody to help you. But it never crossed their minds. And I never really talked about it until the last conversation I had with my dad. We were in a pub and he asked me, he said, "Did my dad ever fuck with you?" And I went, "Yeah." And he went, "Yeah, me too." And that opened the door. And I think I was 25 at the time.
Right.
And that opened the door for the conversation. It was like a switch went off. And it's like, it's a great taboo, but it shouldn't be.
No.
It's so common.
Of course.
And we just didn't, we didn't have, there was no vocabulary. There was no dictionary for that kind of language in my brain. And then it just switched off. And now it's just part of life, for me.
It made sense of your dad's life for you, I presume, a bit.
Yeah, he was a mess.
Yeah,
he was a mess. And he had PTSD for a couple of reasons, I think. And he was self-medicating. Which I did for a long time as well. It's just anything to shut it down, really.
But it's about, I think, finding fake space in your head sometimes, isn't it? It's the self-medicating. It's like it's the nearest you ever get to feeling calm. It's not proper calm because it's chemical.
Yeah, it just shuts the noise down.
Yes.
That's all it does. Yeah, it doesn't help you anyway.
Your dad was still with you when you broke through then with Made in Britain. He saw you become... What did he make of that?
He called me up. He was in tears. He didn't. Yeah. He called me up and he just said, "I didn't know you could do that." And I said, "Neither did I." To be honest, I was like, "No." I'd been doing community theatre, like I say. I hadn't done anything with a camera. I'd always wanted to be there. And I mean, the reason I stuck to my guns, this is a segue, but it's fucking true. The reason I stuck to my guns with it was I went to the cinema. I remember you used to be able to go to the cinema and then you just stay and the film would start again, right? It was bunking in instead of bunking off. And so you pay once and then you go. And I went to the Prince Charles Theatre, Leicester Square, around the corner from you.
That's still there.
And saw Scum.
Right.
And watched it 3 times in a row. And then walking out, I remember saying to myself, I want to do that. I want to do that. Well, that guy, I don't know what that is, but I want that, Ray Winstone. And so when I finally laid my hands on a script, I signed on a dole, called myself an actor. They asked me what I was. I said, I'm an actor. And they wrote it down in Brixton Doll Office. And then, which was burned down during the riots. And then I went and got odd jobs. First script that I got, where they said, this is a film, would you like to go along to it? It's given to me at the Oval House Theatre, and I was trying to get a pump from a tyre. I got a fat tyre at night. And I went there and they didn't have one, but they gave me the information on this audition. And I went up to meet with Alan Clark. And I was listening to your thing with Kathy Burke, and she had a similar experience. The fucking genius Kathy, with Scrubbers, which was the female version of Scum, in a sense. And so I went along and I met Alan. I met Alan Clark, and just kind of, who was one of my heroes because of Scum.
Yes.
And the script was fantastic. And I read with him, which I'm really shit at doing still, really, really bad at auditioning. I don't audition, terrible at it. And he said, come on back tomorrow. So I went back again. And there was a producer sitting there, I think, or maybe the writer was there. And then the final one, he said, come back such and such a day, come back. We're going to have to get the producers in. It was Margaret Matheson, the brilliant Margaret Matheson, those guys. And so I had a let me know if I'm boring you, James.
No.
I had an audition at, let's say it was like noon. So I got there at about 11:15 or something. I stuck my head around the door and said, I'm here. And they went, oh, no, you're not until noon. I said, oh. And I'd scoped the place out. I said, I'll just go and sit in Soho Square. And I'll be over in the park, and I'll come back at 12. And I went over in the park, and I went and kind of got into character a bit,
right, and
got stopped by the police. And then a mate of mine came through the park who was in a weird performance punk band called King Kurtz. I think he had a huge peacock thing, and he called out to me, and he came over, and we were just being stopped by the police and talking and chatting in the park. Went in, said hello to everyone, and got the job. And about, I don't know when it was, a couple of months later when we were finishing the film, Alan turned to me and said, you know why you got the job? And I said, yeah. You were looking at me out that fucking window, weren't you? And he went, you bastard! And it was the game, That was the game. And then that led to Mike Lee, and Mike Lee led to Stephen Fry.
Pause before we leap to Mike Lee. No, but because Made in Britain, when I mentioned on Twitter earlier that I was talking to you later, two British actors replied immediately, and it wasn't even a public post. I was just replying to someone else, and they both said, it was Eddie Marsan and Rufus Sewell, both said that Made in Britain and your career had changed their lives, and that
that's nice.
Certainly Eddie, I don't know if he
certainly changed mine.
Well, that's what I was about to come to. Was the question? Did it change overnight? I mean, the night it went out on the telly, did things feel different and then become different?
Well, there's two sort of aspects to it. When we finished filming, it was the last day of filming, we were doing a night shoot, or last week of filming, I would say, we're doing a night shoot. And Alan said to me, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? I said, I want to be an actor. He said, okay. Who do you want to work with? And I said, oh, well, I've heard about this bloke, Mike Lee. And that was it. That was the extent of my knowledge of him. I knew I'd seen a couple of things on telly, but that was about it. And he picked up the phone, called him that minute, and got me a meeting with him. And then one thing led to another. So on that level, it changed just the trajectory of my life completely. But on the other level, on the weird level, it came out on the telly.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of things that were funny about it. One was, during that period, I became Oi Man of the Year. Boy. So I was on T-shirts as a skinhead, doing that with that mob, and I was on the cover of Gay News. Literally, that was fucking weird and kind of funny and ironic, and I liked it. The other thing was, I was the day after it happened, I was on a bus going to West End, and yes, right, I was probably going off to meeting or something.
Yeah,
And I got off the bus and I'm walking up Wardour Street, and I turn around and there's a shout. I turn around, there's a fucking bunch of skinheads, and they're running towards me. So the skinheads always used to beat punks up.
Yes.
Don't know what just happened. So I legged it, and I'm running up fucking Wardour Street, like, really, and I'm quite fast. But they got me, the bastards got me, and they held me, they grabbed me, and then one of them ran away, and I thought, this is it, I'm done. And got their dad and brought them back, and they all just wanted a picture, and they had a proper camera and all that, because it was before all that bollocks. And and I was stunned by that. You go from getting a hiding from to sort of being their best mate in 90 minutes.
Hi, I'm Dr. Nikki Kanani, GP and Medical Director of Primary Care in England. COVID-19 is still with us, so it's good that 12 to 15-year-olds can now get a second COVID-19 vaccine. Vaccines give your children the best possible protection against the virus and help to keep them in school. Get your 12 to 15-year-old vaccinated 12 weeks after their first dose. Book online or find your nearest walk-in centre at nhs.uk/COVID vaccination.
You mentioned Mike Leigh. I presume that his directing style suited your aversion to read. There'd be no part to read for, would there, with the way Mike Leigh works? So you'd slot, because you do it as so much improvisation, and slotted quite nicely into his modus operandi. But at what point, feeling the luxury of being able to pick and choose? Because I know you've spoken in the past about, and pigeonholing's too shallow a word to describe it, but it's almost like you want to keep scaring yourself, or you want to keep surprising yourself. Or after doing Made in Britain, you could, I suppose, easily have been typecast for the next 20 years, playing very similar roles.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people would argue that I have.
No.
I don't know. But with regards to the work, I didn't know any different. All I knew was the way Alan worked. And then I went onto a set, well, not onto a set, into a process with Mike that was brand new to me. It's long period of rehearsal that's purely improvisational and discussing people that you know, allotting a character, building from that, bringing in family members, all of that. I had no idea how that was. And it was shot in a more traditional way. Whereas Alan was using Steadicam in its kind of virgin state. Yeah. I thought that's how it was done. So I went on Mike's set, and I think it was Roger Pratt shot that, and it was reverses, wide shots, all the usual. But it was very, I went into it kind of eyes open, but everything was new to me. On the typecasting, stereotyping kind of thing, that's up to them. I think that I don't ever bother about it. I'm driven only by the fear of unemployment.
Right, well, you see,
and I think that's a very British thing.
You've never ended up in Jaws 3D, have you, or anything like that?
I would have. If they'd offered it, I probably would have done it. I've done, I did the Hulk. When I can, I do stuff for my kids, because it makes them fucking laugh. When I did Planet of the Apes. Just because my kids got to come. Yeah, but the kids got to see me as a monkey, or I should say, an ape.
Of course.
But that was what it was for, to embarrass the kids at school. So, and then you do the ones that pay the rent, and then the way that you think about it now, or I think about it now, is you do the ones that pay the rent, keep the roof on, and then you do the ones for yourself.
Have you relaxed yet? Do you feel have you hit the?
No, I don't. No, I don't think I ever will.
Well, in terms of not in terms of giving up, but in terms of, I think Martin Amis has called it tramp angst, and it doesn't matter how successful you are. Some people are built in a way that means they're still frightened that they might take a wrong turn and end up sleeping on a park bench. You must feel that you've crossed a form of finish line in your career.
Well, I think I'd have people to hang out with on the bench. I think that's a plus.
Right.
I don't know if it's. I mean, I actually don't know the answer to that because whatever it is, it drives me. I worry. I do worry. And I think that's from I remember pestering my mum for a toy gun when I was a kid, and she opened the purse in the end and showed me there was nothing in it but the key. You worry about shit like that. Oh. She was heroic for having done that and shown me that. She still fed us. Yes, I worry. I worry, and I think that worry is useful and it is good and it drives you. So yes, I will do a film that just purely, pay the mortgage. Fucking that's what it's for. Moving right along, and then you do them and you find, you can do a shit job, and you go, oh god, this one's going to be painful, but it's only a few weeks, you'll be all right, and then you have the best time ever.
Yes,
best time ever.
Of course.
There's always a film crew. There are actors to hang out with. There is an extraordinary experience to be had, and sometimes it's the ones that you think, oh god, can be the most delightful.
But there is an element, a bigger element, I think, than you allow of picking and choosing, isn't there? So certainly, latterly, you must read some scripts and think, I'm not going near that, unless they offer you $10 million or whatever.
You do. You tend. There's a luxury in that. There's one around the corner, so you go, maybe I won't put myself through that at the moment. We're doing all right. And then when push comes to shove, you're off. But yeah, there's definitely there's choice. There's a luxury of choice.
Greatest luxury of all, in almost every area of life. So, how big was the leap then from the kind of, you were doing Peter Greenaway? You were working with all the great British directors, Mike Leigh, Peter Greenaway, Stephen Frears, and then. You did Stoppard. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern was before Reservoir Dogs, wasn't it? And then...
Oh, God, yeah.
But so what was that leap? And how did Quentin Tarantino come into your life? Or how did you come into his?
Well, I was working with... While I was working with Greenaway, Altman wanted to meet me. So I went in and he wanted me to do the Vincent thing. And I tried to talk myself out of it because I thought I was too young. And it was one of my dad's heroes was Vincent. And so he insisted, and I went yes. And then I went back to Greenway, and they all took piss at me, which was funny. They all were wearing bandages. Anyway, oh god! I mean, Michael Gambon is one of the most extraordinary practical jokers you've ever come across. We fucked with him badly, though. It was great. Anyway. And so I went off and I did that in France and Holland, and it was incredible. It was a long period of work because it was originally shot with the intention of it being a mini-series, like a 4-parter or whatever. So we shot that much, and then I think he released it in both ways, but he released it as a 2-hour plus film. Anyway. Because of that, I had to come to America and do press and all of that malarkey. So I said malarkey. That's a Joe Biden word. Weird. So I came to press, and while I was in America, my agents in England said, "You've got to get an American agent. You've got to do that thing." So I auditioned them. I was sitting in a hotel room, and they came through, which was bizarre. And I think I had swollen glands at the time. I was a bit knackered. And I finally settled on this woman who was at an independent agency, very small agency. I went with one of the big ones and then met this woman and tossed that one away and went with her and stuck with her for 16 years. But that meant that I was starting to get scripts coming in from the States. So I went back to England to work. And I can't remember the sequence of events, but I was doing a not very good film, probably because of me, in Australia, having a really lovely time. I'd never been there. So I went to Australia with my bags and did this film. While I was there, this young filmmaker, first-time filmmaker, called me from America via my agent and said, "Will you come and do my film?" I went, "Yeah." So I went straight from Australia to New York. and did his film up in the Bronx before the Bronx became a gentrified, as all places do. And so we shot there, which was not originally where it's from, but was where he lived. We did this little film called Jump at the Boneyard. This guy, Jeff Stansler, directed it. And then I thought, well, I'll come back to England, but I'll go by way of LA and do the bollocks. We have to go and do the meetings. And my agent slapped my wrist and said, you fucking get a room and you're gonna stay here for a couple of months and then you can go home. Because going back to unemployment, but I just wanted to get home. And I sat there, got my baked beans and the toast and that. It's nothing, some things haven't changed. And scripts. She's sending me scripts. And one of the scripts was Reservoir Dogs. And I was 20 pages in and thought, this is fucking extraordinary. And my agent was looking at me. They said, look at this character, look at this character. And I pushed for the liar, the one who was, so it would be an English guy playing an American who was a cop playing a robber. I like the mass confusion of that.
Russian doll.
But anyway, I went in to meet with Quentin and his producer, Quentin and Harvey Keitel. I was like this. And refused to read for them because of my policy in that I lose more jobs by reading than not.
It could make you turn around that, but listening to you, it's because you think you're shit at it. It's not because
I literally am shit at it.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think I'm probably better at it. If I did it, I'm better at it now. But I was crap at it and lost work because of it.
Once it's in your head, it's in your head, right?
Yeah.
So you said, I'm not reading for this for
no fucking way.
That's landed in my
but Harvey was pushing me. Harvey fucking Keitel, not him. He wasn't on the scene yet. Was pushing, and because it was like a father-son relationship, and he needed to know what he was dealing with a little bit, and it was fair play. And then Harvey peeled off. We went to a deli. Yeah, he took off. We went to a pub that I knew, me and Quentin, had a few beers, and went across the road to 7-Eleven, got a six-pack, went back to my flat and read every part in it about 25 times, and he gave me the job.
Sometimes doing your VAT return can feel like going 12 rounds in the ring with a gorilla when you're dressed as a banana. But Xero accounting software can help. Doing your VAT return online with Xero will feel less like rounds of punches and more like rounds of golf.
Good shot.
With a buggy that's been souped up to the max. For help with your VAT return and making tax digital, search Xero with an X.
And that, I think of Alan Clark as the person that marshalled me through the first 10 years of being an actor. And then, with the addition, the one who really shepherded me was Jo Walker back at school. She was the one who got me on this track. Then I think of Alan Clark as being the one that constantly would push me in different directions and move me forward. And then when the American section hit, it was Quentin that just opened the door. My feeling was not to come here to be a movie star. I wanted to be a working actor. And so I went immediately on the hunt for first-time directors and independent films, because there was a little moment of independent filmmaking that was happening before they would start it up. And so I went and found those guys. I did James Gray's first film, Little Odessa, stuff like that. I was fascinated by that.
But so, you were also a Hollywood star as a result of Reservoir.
I never felt that. I never felt
you didn't, but
I could always go to the shops.
Could you?
Yeah.
I guess because
I would do the grocery shopping.
You inhabit a character, so people might recognize. If you were in character, you probably get recognised more. Right?
No, they do. I find people are very. It depends on what country you're in, but we do get chased down the street a bit in certain countries. But here, because I don't. Just asking for trouble, but I worked in Tesco's. One of the jobs I had when I was at school was, fill the shelves at Tesco's, and I like going to the grocery store. I like doing the shopping, so I always do the shopping in the house. and when it's not lockdown. So I go to the grocery store, and that's where I get my reviews. Okay. So the guys that are working on the tills, working in the store, they all know me. The fellow at the butcher's counter, the fish and whatnot, they all know me. And they give me, and the guy at the sort of post office place down the road, and they give me my reviews because I never read them. I never read, good or bad, any review or any interview that I've ever given. I stopped, I think, 20-some odd years ago. And so my reviews I get from the guys who are actually watching the fucking things, and I get some bad ones too.
Yeah. Well, explicitly bad, or just you can tell that they didn't like it. Still being polite.
No, they tell you. They go, "Oh, I'm not liking this, mate." I still give it a chance. It might hook you. Episode 5's all right.
Yeah, because that's the next chapter, then, isn't it? Is that you moved very seamlessly, and actually before that, with the Tarantino films and Reservoir Dogs in particular, you must have been given your initial reaction to the script when the film was released and the world reacted to the first 20 pages essentially as you had done when you read it on your own. You must have been less surprised than other people were by just how huge it went, or not?
Yeah, I mean, the toughest thing, you can make a wonderful film, but you've got to get it out there for people to see it.
Yes.
There's many, many, many good films in the world that have never been seen. And that's the one thing that Quentin did was what he was clever with, in a way that a lot of directors still aren't, is he understood PR. He understood how to do it, and he took it to Sundance and the film festival very, very early on, when you could walk down the street in Sundance. Now it's a zoo. Oh. And we showed it there, and we brought everyone in. And then we did Cannes as well. We did the festival tour. We would go around. We were in Spain and Stegis. We would do these, very small but very cleverly placed festivals and start to create a buzz. He was very clever in that respect. So on the one hand, yes, everyone who was involved in the film thought this is fucking great, and wait until they see the film. But on the other hand, we all of us had some kind of, because we were more experienced than Quentin at that point, we had some kind of disappointment in the past.
Right.
Oh, damn, that was good work. Shit, nobody saw that. But Quentin knew that. He instinctively knew how to play that game, and he's a master at it. Yeah. Don't know if that answers your question.
No,
what's your question?
Absolutely answers. And then, I mean, having had your pick of scripts and projects, you moved very effortlessly into the longer form, into the TV series.
Yeah. It came about. Well, I think that was about being British, really, because there was no snobbery between TV, stage, and film. You just went where the work was.
Yeah.
In England, in Britain, I should say. And then in America, there was film actors don't do TV unless your career's over. You don't fucking touch that. At that time, that was what was happening, and that's fairly recent history.
Hard to believe for youngsters, isn't it?
Yeah. And they came to me with this idea. I can't remember who did it. Oh yeah, I met him at some restaurant I went to. The guy came up with it, met with me, and said, "This is the idea behind it." So wait a minute, they sign you up for this amount of time? He goes, "Yeah." I went, "Okay, I'm on." And so I just did it. I just thought, I thought, what an idea! The idea of trying to expand on a character, or build a character across a period of months and months and months, across episodes, and then if they like it again, then you can build on it again. And at some point, they drop the guillotine on it and kick you out the door. But it was a challenge. I thought it was a good idea. I'd never done it before. That's why I just did it, because I've never done it before, and it turned out to be all right. People liked it. But there were actors. There were actors who were quite famous film actors calling me up during that time, going, "What's the deal with the TV thing, Tim? What do you reckon?"
I read that Netflix was sort of trying to sign people up more than it was worried about the, if you like, the integrity of the art. But that's probably going to change. And you got behind the camera on the War Zone, and Tin Star. You from what I've read, you're kind of. I mean, you decided to move to Liverpool.
The War Zone came about because directors kept telling me, "Go direct your own fucking film."
You want to,
and so.
Do you want to? Did it feel like a burning ambition? Or?
I thought it would be an interesting idea. I mean, I just thought it would be. I watched directors. I'd learned a lot, and I thought, well, now's the chance to fucking do it. And I had a bit of money in the bank from Rob Roy, so I thought, okay, I'll give that a go, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it, and as tough as I'm sure I was, as obnoxious and as I was, those fucking actors, all of them were incredible. Lara and Freddie and Ray and Tilda, all very, very, very amazing people putting up with me. But I loved it. But I don't know if I'll ever go back. I hope so. On the Tin Star front, it became an improvisational exercise fairly early on in season 1. As much as we could. Season 2 was very improvised, and we got to me and Jen and Abs actors, and then Jess Connell and Alison Jackson, who were on the production side. We would collaborate and write as we were going, and it was Genevieve Riley's idea. It came from that, in that we seem to be on the defensive. Why don't we go on the attack? And we were talking about that quite early on in the filming of season 2, and so I came up with a notion of how we could go about doing that, take that idea and run with it. And so I started dropping Liverpool in and the idea of it, even though the actors didn't know what the fuck I was talking about during scenes, and but they went with it, and it got us to Liverpool, and then it became more of a sort of a much more collaborative kind of involved. Series again. So, and then that, appears to be that. But it was a fun ride. I enjoyed doing that one.
And also sort of flexing new muscles and different muscles. We're out of time, so I'll end with a double-headed question.
Oh no! Now what do I do?
Go left, indicators on. Go left at the next junction. Go left, find an emergency zone. Go left, don't forget your phone. Go left, out the passenger door.
If your car breaks down on the motorway, remember one thing: go left. Search Go Left, National Highways.
I thought this before I spoke to you, and I'm even more confident of it now, that you've never had specific ambitions in that sense, which leads into the final question. I mean, yes or no? And then, do you have any ambitions left now? And I just sort of because you mentioned Rob Roy, you nearly got an Oscar for that. I mean, silly ambitions or serious ones.
No, I don't have any on the sort of gold in your hat version.
Oh, cool.
That I don't worry about that. I would like to direct, I think.
Yeah.
I that's an ambition that's still there. I have some work that I could do. I have some scripts that are ready. It depends when I'm ready. And then, like psychologically ready, I think. And then, no, my ambition is to, but the only ambition that I would have, it's twofold. One is to stay employed. The other is that I don't become bored with it. That I don't find that what I finally, as I've entered the sort of last section of my life, that I don't find that it's mind-numbing and dull and predictable and old. I think it would be, and is hopefully going to be, I would like it to be, challenging till the end.
And if it does become boring, the bloke on the butcher's counter will let you know first.
I'm straight back to Tesco's, mate.
Tim Roth, thank you so much.
Thank you, James. Keep up the good work. I take you with me around the world.